Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, into the one and only Straight Facts Homie. There is Walter Spina, John Lyons. I'm Mason Souza, and we have a fourth member, a very, very special guest joining the show. She is Trenni Kusnierek, NBC Sports Boston, on Twitter at Trenni. It's very impressive that you got the first name. You were the first Trenni on Twitter, but it's a pleasure.
2008, man. I was like one of the originals.
You were the first of the craze. I was like 6 years after that. I couldn't pick anything. But Trenni, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I'm just going to try to live up to Felger.
Hey, I think you can fill those shoes. No worries there. And I want to start this off, Trenni. When we talk about the Patriots, right? So they go 10-7. They get blown out in the wild card round. You can really see that gap between them and the Bills. And we head into this offseason. Last year, they need a quarterback. They need someone to help stop the run. They get Mac Jones. They get Christian Barmore. They spend a lot of money in free agency. Now, though, we're sitting here where there's still that gap between the Patriots and the Bills. What do you think they need to do most to address that gap and potentially close that gap heading into next year?
Get an offensive coordinator so that Mac Jones doesn't regress. Like, if you would have asked me this question at the end of the season, I probably would have said, well, they clearly need like a binky, right? They need a Julian Edelman for Mac Jones because he needs a guy that he can trust and go to. And Jacoby Myers, nice player, but I just don't think he's that guy. Nelson Aguilar, if they cut him, I wouldn't shed a tear. And I don't think you're going to get that with Hunter Henry and definitely not N'Keal Harry. So I think that's an area where they've been lacking for a few years. It was an issue with Tom Brady. But then when Josh McDaniels left and he took a bunch of guys with him, and there have been, Joe Judge was rehired, and now there's this rumor that Matt Patricia is going to maybe call plays, but maybe coach the offensive line. Like, to me, that's now the greatest concern because your best asset, if you were going to move forward with Mac Jones as your quarterback and you don't have someone that can make sure that he takes the necessary steps forward, you got nothing. You're back at square one if you ruin this kid.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up on that too, because with Josh McDaniels, he was the coordinator for 14 years. They were in the top 10 in scoring 13 of those 14 years, including 6th last year with Mac Jones. So when you look at this concern on the offensive coaching staff, who do you look at? Like, do you think they will bring someone in like a Bill O'Brien, like a Chad O'Shea, or do you think it's kind of this is what they have and can they make it work?
I thought that they would bring someone in. It's not like it's too late, obviously, but wouldn't you want your lead offensive guy to be in-house already before the combine and to have – and I know we've got still, almost 2 months until the NFL draft. It's at the end of April. So it's not as if that person who came in isn't going to have some familiarity, obviously, with those players and with the system. But wouldn't you want that guy to be there sort of from the ground level up and maybe be at the combine and working with a macro on what they're going to go after since it's so important, or at least in-house already and talking to Mac Jones about off-season programs and how he can get better and what he can do and not leaving it entirely up to him, which leads me to believe that they may just go with someone in-house. And I mean, I'm not breaking any news. I think everyone's heard the name of Nick Caley. That might be the guy, former tight ends coach, that he's, never done that job before, but kind of Josh McDaniels like. Is how I've heard him described. And if they go that way, and that works, that's great. But it certainly feels like there's not really a plan, right? It doesn't feel like there is a set course that they are charting right now.
I'll let you go, Mason. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go. It's all good. No, but this is a great topic. It's a hot topic where your first words there, like get a coordinator, get an offensive coordinator, because it seems that currently this point in time, no offensive coordinator. They fooled around with Brian Flores, didn't name him a defensive coordinator while he was here. Is that a money thing? I don't know. But this kind of ties into my question of the Patriots kind of falling apart, with lack of a better phrase, down the season, the last 3 years, not just this one after the bye. Some records post-Thanksgiving with, I believe it was from Tom Brady's mouth saying that Bill Belichick's one of his favorite quotes is like, real football starts after Thanksgiving. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but something like that. 2019, 2-4 after Thanksgiving. 2020, Cam Newton year, 3-3. Then last year, including the Bills loss in the playoffs, well, including both Bills losses, 3-4. So very subpar performances. And that's 3 different quarterbacks those 3 years. That's Brady, that's Cam, that's Mac now. Does that tie into Bill somehow? Is down the stretch, and I'm leading a little bit, so forgive me.
It's okay, lead the witness. It's all right.
Exactly. Objection. But what's the deal with, is a message being lost late in the year? Are the teams like, I believe we spoke to Ted Johnson a while and asking him this same question. It seemed like the team was feeling themselves. And after that 7-game win streak that I believe Walter came on here and called that, we learned that's a fraud win streak at this point. I don't know if I'd go so far to say it's fraudulent, but I'm throwing my hat in there. Maybe the coach's message is getting a little lost late in the year, and these teams kind of, revert back to a mediocre bunch.
I mean, I don't know how you can point to Bill Belichick and say they were always good in December and the postseason because of Bill Belichick, and then not say that it's also tied to him that the last 3 years they haven't been great in those months. And I don't know how much of that has to do with the personnel that he has, again, like in Brady's last year, his biggest frustration, right, were the offensive pieces around him, minus Julian Edelman. You really had a bunch of guys who you had a rookie Jacoby Myers, you had a rookie N'Keal Harry, you had young, unproven guys. I think Sony Michel was also a rookie in Brady's, right? Brady's second year player. Yes.
Tailed off from his rookie year, that 20.
Yeah, second year player. So like young guys that I don't think he trusted a ton. And I also feel like when there has been coaching lapses or guys have left, that they have not been replaced with the same caliber of coach that has come back in, or of someone who has fit that mold. And I also point to, like you said, you don't have a Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator. Now you have, it's Steve Belichick and Gerard Mayo. Like, and maybe this is not a fair parallel to draw, but if you walk into your office and there's like 4 bosses, but which one do I report to? I don't know, whichever one that day. Like, how do you have any cohesive nature to your team? Because you're not going to go to the head of your company. You're not going to go to the owner of your company, who in this instance is Bill Belichick. If you've got a problem, you go to your direct report. Well, if you don't know who your direct report is at a whole bunch of different levels, and there's, not defined roles, and we only look at the coordinator positions, but I would also take it down to, your wide receivers coach. There's like a couple wide receivers coaches, running back coaches. I mean, really, at this point, Ivan Fears seems like he has like the most defined role of all the other coaches on the team. Like, what does that lead to? To me, of course, you're going to have terrible penalties and undisciplined play. And maybe you're going to get ahead of yourself a little bit and think a little bit more of yourself, because you don't have someone that is consistently hammering home the message, because you might be getting 5 or 6 different messages depending on who is delivering it.
Yeah, and kind of tying that in now, moving forward to the NFL draft and look at what the Patriots need, both maybe more defensively than offensively, but looking at a guy like Joe Burrow and their pick at number 5 last year, they went with Jamar Chase to pair with Burrow. We saw it with Tua. They drafted Jalen Waddle. They played together in college. With that number 21 pick, would it just seem, easiest to just go get Mac, a wide receiver from Alabama that seems to be working out for most guys in the NFL, where if Mac and maybe whoever that rookie wide receiver is they don't know who to go to, at least they have each other and they can try to just get on the page with one another. I know there's other, players that can all just be professional with one another, but it seems like that mold of quarterback wide receiver combo from the same college seems to work out. So, and then we've heard that it's kind of a depth draft where you can go get those pieces, and Belichick's good at drafting guys in the later rounds. So, should they just go wide receiver 1 and get Mac Jones, as you said in your first answer, like that binky, and maybe someone to pair with Kendrick Bourne, because Kendrick Bourne seemed to be that guy that kind of built some cohesiveness with Mac Jones.
Yeah, I mean, the problem I think with, if you're going to go first round with an Alabama wide receiver, everybody thinks it's going to be Jamison Williams, who has the torn ACL and probably isn't going to be able to play. And my whole thing is, that's fine if you already have an established receiver that he's comfortable with and you're looking more long-term, right? Like, how can we continue to add to this offense as Mac gets better? But you need someone right away next year. So you're not going to be able to go for that like Alabama connection, I think, at least not in the first round. I'm not going to like pretend to be like Phil Perry draft Nick and know all. And he actually said, he talked today about, is it Chris Olave, is that his first name?
From Ohio
The
State.
kid
Yeah.
from Ohio State. He's also brought up another kid whose name is escaping me right now from Arkansas that he really likes. That's like within the SEC and sort of like has that sort of same style of play as Alabama. Here's my thing. Do I trust them to make the right decision in the first round to get a wide receiver? Right? Isn't that everybody's question? Like, yes, you say go out and do it. One, that player has to be there. The one that you want has to be available when you pick at 20 or 21, right? I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah.
When you pick at 21. But two, you got to pick the right guy because they have not, like, when's the last time in the first round they drafted a wide receiver that made a major contribution?
Terry Glenn, probably, which is well before Belichick's time anyway.
So zero, yeah.
Zero, yeah. So I wonder if because it's such a deep draft, you go with although because it's a deep draft, maybe it's a can't miss. Maybe it's a can't miss in the first round this time, where like even Bill Belichick can't screw it up and take like N'Keal Harry 2.0. Like that'd be my fear, is that you go after, you think a guy's a first round talent and he's not. And then you draft him, and then you've got two N'Keal Harrys instead of just one. And we don't even want one N'Keal Harry.
Yeah, and the wide receiver position, I think, is probably the biggest need on offense. But then defensively,
right,
one of the things that showed up most, I think, especially in those two games against the Bills later in the season that they lost, they didn't have enough speed on the field. They looked slow. And if you compare it to Patriots defenses from even 2 or 3 years ago, Kyle Van Noy looked slower. Donta Hightower looked slower. A lot of these guys, they just look slower.
Well, because they're older.
Right.
And like they've allowed their defense to age and they have not replaced it with young players. Like even when you start to look at the defensive depth chart, you've got a lot of guys like, like Winovich comes to mind, right? Like he just hasn't panned out. And now I'm like trying to like go through the
Josh Uche is another, right? Young, very talented player, measurables off the charts. Cameron McGrone, they drafted last year. I know.
Oh God, that's
like ACL, but he has those size and measurables. But you're right, none of these guys have really stepped up. I mean, the last time the Patriots had a rookie linebacker that really made an impact to me was Hightower, and that's 10 years ago that I can think of off the top of my head. So do you look? To me, everybody says, all right, go linebacker at 21, go linebacker at 21. I personally lean corner, considering they're probably not going to bring J.C. Jackson back. But for you, do you view corner, linebacker, receiver? Like, what do you think is the biggest thing that, whether it's free agency or the draft, the thing they need to target most?
I still think it's wide receiver, because I think that in this NFL, you have to have a dynamic offense. Like you've got to be able to, even the Tennessees, even the Buffaloes and the Kansas Cities, or even throw in the Tennessees. Like not all of them have. Cincinnati didn't have a great defense, but they had an offense that could go toe to toe with some of the better offenses. Like defense isn't a calling card as much anymore in the NFL. And that doesn't mean that you can just throw together anybody and get away with it. But like if Joe Burrow would have had a good offensive line, I think we're probably maybe having a different conversation about who won the Super Bowl. Like he was running for his life. It wasn't even so much that the Rams picked apart, the Bengals defense. I think you can have a decent defense, but you have to have a more than above average, like an excellent offense. And the only way you're going to have an excellent offense is if you have a quarterback wide receiver combo that can get it done. Like all of the great teams, like you have Cooper Kupp on the Rams, you had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams on the Packers. You've got Patrick Mahomes, and he's got like 50. He's got Kelsey and Hill and everybody to throw to. So it's like if you don't have those pieces and you don't have someone to throw to, then I don't know what. Like you can stop all the teams you want, but if it's like a close game and you need a big play, that was what happened with the Patriots, right? Like they could push the ball down the field, but only to a certain point. They had a hard time scoring points and being efficient in the red zone.
Yeah, and I think you can even look at the Patriots' last championship for evidence of that, because, yes, they hold the Rams to 3 points in the Super Bowl, but they had to score 37 to win the AFC Championship game, and they scored 40 in the divisional round. So, yes, you need a good defense, or in your words, even a decent one, but you're going to have at least one, if not more, playoff games. You got to put up a lot of points in order to advance.
And remember, they won, and they were able to win with only, in a low-scoring game, because what was it? Was it Jared Goff? Was that the quarterback for the Rams in the Super Bowl? Like like, again, what kind of conversation are we having if it would have been, let's just say the California teams had different quarterbacks and it was Justin Herbert instead of Jared Goff? Like, are we talking about a different outcome in that Super Bowl because you actually have to face a quarterback with some talent? No offense, Jared Goff.
I wholeheartedly agree. The days of defense wins championship, I don't think they exist anymore. It's
what was that, like the Ravens? I was thinking
Exactly.
like the Ravens and the Buccaneers of like the early 2000s. Like, that's not how you win anymore.
Right. I totally
showing my age.
No, you're absolutely
agree.
right.
Those are the Ravens and Buccaneers of the early 2000s.
Yeah,
it takes us back
look
to
at every
Patriots dynasty days.
Super Bowl run. They've had to score points in at least one or more playoff games.
Yeah. And even like, I mean, I suppose you could say, well, towards the end in that game against Buffalo, they started to put points, but they were behind by so much at that point. It was like Buffalo was like, we'll let the little kids score. And again, not to say that you should also be allowing Josh Allen and the Bills to not punt over the course of 2.5 games. Like, that's unacceptable as well. Like, you have to be better on defense. But if you're going to invest and you're really looking at like, okay, well, where do we need to put the money? Where do we need to put the focus? For me, it's what, and also, I mean, like, look what's happening with Kyler Murray in Arizona. I also feel like, and look at the draft with quarterbacks this year. And I had actually thrown this out today on our show as a topic. We just didn't have time for it. But like, there's like, what is it? Kyle Pickett, I think, is like the
Kenny
one
Pickett's,
quarterback. Yeah, Kenny Pickett.
There's like 2 guys that you could see in the first round. Maybe.
Right. And so like last year was, I don't even want to say it was an embarrassment of riches, but it kind of was at the quarterback position. Like, you're not going to get that every single year at the quarterback position. And there's still questions. Like, even the top 5 guys that went last year in the first round in the NFL draft, like as quarterbacks, none of them are givens. And so if you need to find out, to me, you need to figure out sooner than later. Like, you need to know by the end of year 3, is Mac Jones your guy or is he not your guy? Because you don't want to be in a position like Arizona. And I'm starting to think that Arizona doesn't really know if they trust Kyler Murray or not. Because if they did, why would you not do a team-friendly deal with him? Or even if it's not a team-friendly deal, if you think he's your quarterback of the future and he can lead you to a Super Bowl, you would sign him right away. Like, you would not hesitate. And if at this point, you can't wait. Like, if somebody's not your guy, you have to move on from them. And you have to either then go the route of the Rams and say, we're parting ways with you and we're going to just trade for somebody and we'll kick the can down, kick it down the, well, I don't know what's like.
Down the road, down the path, down the football field.
Down the road. I've been working all day today. Started with radio at 11:30. So like brain not like working very well with my mouth. But yes, you cannot kick the can down the road. Thank you.
We all have brain fog.
Yeah, apparently everyone does, whether you had COVID or not. We
it's
like
weird,
all have brain fog from like just like the trauma of everything.
Yeah.
Like, you have to know, you have to make decisions, and you either have to pay that quarterback and realize that that's going to be your guy and that's where your investment is, or you got to cut and run. And so to me, the only way you're going to find that out, like, you don't waste a lot of capital if you draft a really good receiver and he doesn't work out with this quarterback. At least you have a really good receiver for your next quarterback.
Trenni Kusnierek, then NBC Sports Boston, on Twitter at Trenni. Just 2 more here and we'll get you out on this. Speaking of, wide receivers and Mac Jones, and like you said it, the first round quarterbacks, none of that is given. Odds are 2 or maybe 3 of those will not pan out, will not be a franchise quarterback. So you mentioned go wide receiver. Do you think at some point in the draft, should they take a quarterback also? Because Mac Jones, while I agree, honestly, one of the best rookie, obviously Justin Herbert had a tremendous rookie season. But before that, a rookie quarterback having as an efficient season as Mac Jones has, it's few and far between. So I'm high on him. I think a lot of people are. Not a lot of people are ready to put their stamp down on how high his ceiling might be. Will he be a top 10 quarterback in the league someday? Who knows? But do you think Bill Belichick will entertain a quarterback mid-rounds or maybe even next season?
I mean, I guess I'd say if you need a suitable backup, but let's also be honest. Like, how often do you go mid-round quarterback and get somebody who's going to be a franchise quarterback for you, or even like a holdover, like a guy who can fill the hole for a year when you're looking for someone? Like, I think it's easy in New England to be like, yeah, but Tom Brady was the 199th pick and went in the 6th round. Like, okay, cool. He's my age and he was the last good quarterback to come out of the draft that late. Like everyone else is minimum 1st round and at worst, like a good 2nd round quarterback. You might get a Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round, but do you get, I mean, where did Russell,
I think he was a 4th rounder.
Late 3rd, I think.
Late 3rd. Okay.
Dak Prescott's so like around there, 3-4.
Dak was 4th,
every once in a while, I guess you can get someone 3rd. But again, it's you have
it's
to.
Very rare.
It's like hitting the lottery, right? Like even Patrick Mahomes falling as far as he did, like he should have been the consensus number 1 overall pick, and he wasn't. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe if they see someone, again, may I suggest Phil Perry for this very podcast, who knows all of the college players inside and out and does tons of research. So I couldn't name one if I tried. But if there is somebody in the middle of the draft that you think is like a can't miss and might be a Russell Wilson or a Dak Prescott, then maybe you take the chance on it just in case as an insurance policy. But I also wonder, do you then like what message does that send to Mac Jones? Like early on, does that light a fire under him? Or does that derail his confidence? And then you had a kid that you thought was yours and he falls apart. Although I guess if he falls apart, then you kind of know maybe he can't hack it. So
I was just going to follow up on say that exact same thing. If he can't do it, then you know that wasn't going to be your guy. So you would hope no one has the competitive juice that Tom Brady has, but you think like, I'm a true believer in thinking that, drafting Jimmy Garoppolo got like a 3rd Hall of Fame career out of Tom Brady's. Like, really? You're going to replace me right now? No, watch me win 4 more championships.
Oh, I mean, I'm a Packers fan. And right now, like Aaron Rodgers is driving me absolutely batty, but they brought in Jordan Love, 26th overall. And suddenly Aaron Rodgers is like going for like Guy edemas and stuff, and like taking care of his body and wanting to be a better football player. God,
they draft Jordan Love and then they draft AJ Dillon the year before. It's like, just get me a 2nd wide receiver.
Yeah. I don't understand why all these teams won't get like Patriots. Why were you not getting Tom Brady, like the wide receiver he wanted? He was Tom freaking Brady. What was your problem? That's what you do. You keep a good quarterback happy. Like if everybody else knows that you need a good, happy quarterback to win football games and win Super Bowls, I don't know why you don't bend over backwards to always make that quarterback happy.
You're speaking to the choir here.
Yeah, it's Bill Belichick. Yeah, my last question has to do with Bill Belichick and possibly being stuck in his old ways. When we had Ted Johnson on about a month ago, he said that he was like,
he's awesome.
They needed just revamp that entire front 7, and he was talking about Bill Belichick's kind of inability to sort of adapt to today's game with speedy linebackers that can go sideline to sideline. Is that kind of the case with Bill Belichick, where you said, you can get by with a subpar defense and a very good offense, but is Bill kind of stuck in his old ways, trying to build those early 2000s Buccaneers and Ravens defenses and the big stocky linebackers that can stuff the run, but can't cover for anything? Because I don't think we have a linebacker on our defense that can cover. So is Bill kind of stuck in his own ways and maybe has a bit of inability to adapt to today's game?
I mean, I don't know if I'd go so far to say that he has an inability to adapt to today's game, because obviously, you take away that year with Cam Newton, which was just an abject disaster. And like to win 10 games with a rookie quarterback and to go out and spend all that money in free agency and quite frankly, not have, Jonnu Smith didn't pan out. Nelson Aguilar didn't pan out. Matthew Judon was pretty good to start. I don't know if it was injuries or what it was that just sort of like derailed the second half of the season. But like, I do feel that he obviously can still make something, I don't want to say out of nothing, but out of more than like what the average coach can. But where I do think sometimes that he gets too stuck in his ways, it is bringing in too many people that are yes guys. I mean, he keeps going back to the same well, right? So you're not bringing in any new, young, innovative talent. You're bringing in all these people who have always worked around one way and one way only. And also thinking, I think, that you can still win with defense and that you can win it in the trenches kind of a thing. Like he kind of devalues quarterbacks. Like when you ask, like, did you think he'll go after a quarterback? I don't know that he would. I don't know that he would waste a pick on a quarterback, even if you thought that he could find someone in the 3rd or 4th round, because I think he thinks that he can win with any quarterback. It's why he, didn't fight to keep Tom Brady. even though we all saw that Tom Brady was still really good, Bill was like, it's fine. Just give me Cam Newton. We'll win with Cam Newton. Give me Mac Jones. We'll win with Mac Jones. Okay, he didn't win with Cam Newton, but he won with Mac Jones. I don't know that he values that position. I think like through and through, he's like an old school defensive guy who thinks that you can win with like bulk and brawn.
It just seems
I don't know. Maybe he'll surprise us all, in the draft and go after and get, like a true cover corner or a fast, like sort of like slimmer. There's a linebacker. And again, I'm not going to remember the guy's name, but he's a little small for a linebacker. Like he's smaller, I think, than what usually the Patriots would go after. Might only be like in the 220, 230 range in terms of weight.
Right. The ones that go side to side and cover.
Yeah.
And
Phil's like, oh, that's not a Patriots linebacker. They would never go after a guy like that. His first name starts with an N. That I do remember.
Nakobe Dean from Georgia.
That's it. Nakobe Dean. That's it. I think that's it. And it feels like, they would never go after him because he's not a Patriots kind of a player. But maybe they do. Maybe they see that and they recognize that. Even though we're all screaming wide receiver, they go with like a Nakobe Dean, who is a phenomenal player on a great Georgia team, that won the national championship.
Probably better than most of the Patriots wide receivers anyway. He plays linebacker. He can move.
I just hope, like Walter said, like Bill's not stuck in his ways. And like historically speaking, whenever we think he's going to zig, he zags. And, he is ahead of the game. At 70
Mason,
years
when's
old,
the last time he zagged? When's the last time he zagged?
It's been maybe half a decade or so. I don't know.
It's been a while.
It's been a little bit, maybe longer.
Been a while.
Not entirely sure.
Gonna take a running back at 21.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Feature with a three-headed monster.
Phil the other day on our show said they should cut Jake Bailey and like get another punter, and I was like, no, you can't waste the draft. You have too many needs. You cannot waste the draft pick on a punter again. I was like, then take one like in the fourth round.
That settles it. We have to have Phil on because John will die for Jake Bailey. So that is a conversation
he's all about cutting him for salary cap room.
I'm ready to put him in the Hall of Fame. So we'll have to talk to Phil.
You and Tommy Curran into the 2020 MVP of the New England Patriots.
Well, Bill, he'll spend $100 million on special teams, and it's like, oh, we're good at that now. We're ready to make the playoffs.
I can tell you what Phil will do. Phil will not be like, and what's that guy's name from that one school who's good? Like Phil will know everybody.
Right off the top, right off the dome.
Oh, he'll have like a book.
And you can see all them on NBC Sports Boston, including Trenni Kusnierek, again on Twitter at Trenni, Trenni. This was awesome. Really appreciate you joining us, Trenni. Thanks for taking the time.
You got it. Anytime.
All right. Straight Facts, homie. We'll be right back.